another Saturday, and it's 11 o'clock. So it has to be a Badminton Talk podcast. Mark Topping, how are you today?
I am absolutely brilliant, John Noble. How are you keeping?
Oh, I'm keeping fine. My goodness, the tan is growing at this stage, but looking at you, you're more tan than me. Mark, what's the secret?
More leisure time, more time at the garden.
More weeding, Mark, is it?
No, weeding the no, it's now watering the flowers, John.
Oh, watering the flowers, my goodness, that's great. Well, we have two really interesting guests today, Mark. Are you excited?
Oh, John, I am always excited to talk about badminton and always excited to meet new people.
Yeah, well, today on the Badminton Talk podcast, which we all know is sponsored by New Shuttle, we have not just one guest, but we have two guests. And Mark, I'm going to maybe tease you a little bit here just at the very start. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a clue here, and let me see, can you pick up something on this? Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready, John.
Okay. I see, Mark, you're definitely getting into the swing of that music. That was clue number one. Any idea what that might?
That sounds like my local pub, the Merry Ploughboy up the Dublin Mountains.
When have you been in a pub last?
Occasionally, I would go up to the Merry Ploughboy.
Well,
and they play sort of traditional Irish music, John.
Yeah, trad, yeah. Well, mountains, yeah, okay. I kind of will accept that as maybe something. Let me give you another. You got to listen real quick, okay? You ready?
I'm ready, John.
Okay.
As I was going over the Farfigny Mountains, I found his money he was counting. I first produced me pistol, I then produced me ringer.
Okay, I've just put really quick there, sorry. So, Mark, okay, any idea?
Yeah, John, well, I picked up on Kerry in that Whiskey in the Jar. Who did that originally, John? Was that Thin Lizzy?
Yeah, it was Thin Lizzy. Yeah, that's right. The band filled in it. So yeah, we have. So, who was it? We have.
Well, we have two guests from Kerry, John Noble, that we're delighted to introduce. I suppose this is sort of networking. As everybody knows, I used to play a lot with Michael O'Mara, who's based down in Nina in County Tipperary. And Michael's O'Mara and I were talking one night, and he suggested that we interview two ladies from Kerry who are doing some very interesting things in the badminton world, very progressive things.
Okay. So I think and I'm funny enough, Mark, I'm looking here at our wonderful Zoom, and we thought our technology we had forever when we bring on guests. We have 8 minutes on this record left, so we'll probably just get the introduction done on this, and then we'll continue on. But our listeners won't see the difference. But yeah, we have Jill Redmond and Michelle Corr joining us from Kerry. Welcome, Jill. Welcome, Michelle. Finally get to say hello on the Badminton Talk podcast.
Hi, John. Hi, Mark. Thanks for having us.
You're very, very welcome.
I loved your introduction.
You liked it? Yeah,
I did.
We were trying to find famous songs from Kerry, and we got a lot of obviously very traditional music, so we wanted to be a little bit broad. And of course, on some of the first video, you could see, I think, a pub setting, and it was fantastic. But obviously, this is a podcast, so there's nothing visually to be seen there. Okay, Mark, I'm going to introduce Jill. Okay, I'm going to start off with Jill, and then you have time to prepare it then for Michelle. Okay. So, Jill Redmond, you are welcome. Jill Redmond is, now I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong. Jill was giving me some rehearsal notes on my phonetics here. Knock Nagashal. How about that? Is that pronounced that right, Jill?
I would say that was correct.
Okay, from Kerry, and you won't. Some of you may know Jill Redmond, very involved in the game of badminton down in Kerry. But Jill moved over from Manchester in the UK in 2017, and decided to get involved in badminton at that time, really to build up a good social circle. We all know in badminton it's a wonderful networking circle, and you mentioned Michael O'Mara. My goodness, what a networker Michael O'Mara is too, and I know he's listening to this, but I'm sure Jill and Michelle, you are really good networkers too. To meet lots of people, and we'll explore that a little more as we get into our Q&A. Something you may or may not know about Jill, she is a UK Level 2 coach. So just like you, Mark, and me, Level 2 coaches, we have Jill's Level 2 as well. So that is great to have that qualification, and we will drill into that a little bit more later. So Jill, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. It's very nice.
Okay, that's all. We won't be nice. Well, we'll continue to be nice. Yeah, okay. Okay, Mark, over to you.
And I would also love to introduce our second guest on the Badminton Talk podcast, Michelle Corr, who hails from Ballyhaig in County Kerry. Michelle is a Level 1 Badminton Ireland coach. She's coached both Kerry and Munster juvenile badminton teams and has been involved in running Technic badminton camps for the last 3 years. She also coaches in the Ballyhaig Family Resource Centre 2 nights a week, mainly with kids from the ages of 6 to 12. Also done plenty of women in sport programmes for Badminton Ireland in the Galway area.
Wow.
And also runs a lot of after-school badminton programmes for Badminton Ireland in both secondary and national schools.
My goodness, very active.
Yes, I'm getting tired even reading this. This is brilliant, Michelle. Also, Michelle coaches in other clubs for both juveniles and senior members. Michelle, welcome to the Badminton Talk podcast.
Thank you, Mark. Or same as yourself with the coaching.
Yes, I think you and I are very similar.
With the schools.
Yeah, I do an awful lot of coaching in schools here in South Dublin. That's my area, that's where I live. And it sounds like you do the same in Ballyhaig in Kerry.
Yes, well, just trying to keep promoting badminton for kids, trying to keep kids interested, getting more kids to join badminton.
Yeah, and I was just going to jump in there and just say, you managed to pronounce Ballyhaig correct twice, Mark.
Very well.
That's very impressive. You want to hear what the rehearsals were like.
I'm a quick learner, Joe.
Okay, Mark, I think we will get going, okay? That's enough of an introduction. So the format is, I will ask Jill a question, you will ask Michelle a question. Mm-hmm. Then we'll switch it around. I will ask Michelle and you'll ask Jill, but you'll start. So if I'm out of sequence, you can fill me in. So I think you're going to start by asking Michelle the first question. So, Mark Topping, over to you.
Michelle, how did you get started in badminton?
Hi, Mark. Well, my neighbour was always at me to go down with her to our local club just to start badminton, and I suppose I was always into sports and loved playing sports. I played football when I was in secondary school, so I was probably looking for something to get into in another sport. So badminton, I just wanted to try out badminton and see would I like it, and I loved going to all the games, and obviously football as we're in Kerry against Dublin. We won't mention too much about that.
Oh, yes. You could talk about the Gaelic. Go on, that's okay.
We'll be bringing back sand this year, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We give it to you for a few years on loan after your 18 years of dry.
Yeah. Well, that was so kind of you. But listen, it is time for you to kind of win it back. The key word is win. Yes. But anyway, we shall.
Yes.
We'll have to do another podcast.
I think we will.
Okay.
We will have to start bringing some cups back to Kerry again. So that's the thing. Like I said, how my friend used to get me to go down to badminton. I went down with her, and I actually liked the sport.
Yeah.
And I started playing from there.
How old were you when you started?
Oh, that's a bit terrible.
Are you rude to ask someone in their age or questions like that?
A little over 21.
And to any of our listeners here on the Badminton Talk podcast, we of course sponsored by, as we know, the Q Shuttle. We can see right in front of us Jill Redmond and Michelle Corr looking, I have to say, very, very, what's the word, Mark, I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Looking extremely youthful and very well. So we could always do a screenshot and post this up on Facebook, but we have to ask their permission first. Remember that, Mark.
Okay,
GDPR is very important. GDPR. So, wow, that's a great answer, Michelle. I'm going to take over and ask Jill the same question. Jill, how did you get started in badminton? And maybe if you wanted to say when, but it's up to you, of course.
So I a bit like Michelle, I played lots of sports when I was younger. I played a specific sport which you don't play over here unless you get a lot of Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans. So I played a game called netball, and I played that for years. Yeah. And then when I had my son, we always did stuff together. We did sports together. We did martial arts together for quite a while. And we're always looking for another sport to do. And I kind of stopped doing the martial arts because I was constantly covered in bruises and going into meetings with work. And you'd take your work jacket off and you'd have bruises all down your arms. It's very difficult to explain to people why you have bruises all over your arms. So we kind of, I know, you can imagine you're going, I'm not bad in life, honestly, it's very difficult to do it. And then there was always a thing where when you do martial arts, you always have to bow as you go into the dojo, and I'd go into meetings and I'd bow in a meeting and I'd bow when I got out leaving a meeting. So, I was kind of going, maybe I should be thinking about a different sport. And badminton is a sport I played previously. We'd always go with friends into the local sports centre and hire rackets and shuttles, and we'd just play, and it was always good fun. And then when I had with my son, as he was getting a bit older, we went down to the local sports centre one day, and there was a badminton club running for juveniles, and they came over and asked him if he wanted to join in, and he was like, okay, so he joined in, and then he started going on a weekly basis, and I started to take him down, and then they asked if I would come on board as a coach, and would I be interested in coaching, and they would coach me on how to coach the kids and get into badminton, and I kind of liked it because I played badminton. And that's kind of, a long story short, that's how I got into playing badminton. And from there, then I started playing more to increase my coaching ability, my technical ability, and everything else, really. So I was probably late 30s, maybe. Late 30s? Yeah, probably late 30s.
Yeah,
I started playing properly.
Jill, that's a wonderful way of explaining badminton, because I think a lot of people sometimes just pick up badminton by accident. They just end up, seeing maybe a friend or an uncle. I think we were interviewing Georgina, who was the guy, Muzzy, was that his name, Muzzy, and said it was one of the uncles, and just simply went down and really fell in love with this kind of sport. And it's the combination of it been such a sociable sport, a great exercise, and it doesn't really matter what age. I mean, I didn't take the sport up till 22, and I thought, because I was swimming was my own sport, and I'm still playing, and I think I'm old now. There's people playing in their 70s and 80s. We interviewed a guy, Ray Webster, he's mid-60s, and he plays on the world circuit, the highest circuit. Yeah. So it's great. And then you have the Paralympics, the Special Olympics. There's so much. It's an amazing sport, and I think there's no barriers to really entry. I think for badminton federations and branches to keep promoting the sport, exactly what you and Michelle are doing down in Kerry, promoting the sport. And I know we'll get on to how those clubs that you've been got involved starting up and the number of players. We'll get onto that in a second, but I think it's over to me, Mark. Is it on the next one?
You've got a question too, John. Yeah.
Okay, so Michelle, I have a question for you. What was your first badminton club, and can you remember who was your first coach or coaches? There you go.
Yeah, so again, my local club would be Ballyhike. It's more so was a social side than a lot of coaching, more so in it. Now, in the last few years, it has got more kind of competitive, and we've gone on to league matches and things like that.
Yeah.
So it would be Ballyhike, yeah.
Okay.
And who sort of introduced you, or who was some big coaches in your area?
That's a good question, Mark. Did you make up that? Okay. Sorry.
Seniors, we actually don't get a lot of coaching at senior level. I think actually we did bring out Billy Lacey. We brought out Billy Lacey to the club 1 or 2 times just to give us some coaching.
Brilliant. Yeah. But there wasn't really any structured coaching when you started?
No, it would be just friends helping out, giving you tips, just showing you what to do, just guiding you on the way, and yeah, just more so just the people within the club trying their best to introduce you. They were very good in that sense. They would be higher levels, and they would bring us, when you're just starting in the club, they would bring you in to play with them and just get you to, show you different shots, show you what to do, tell you the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
Yeah.
It goes to show how important it is to just have someone who's either played the sport or knows something about it, just to introduce others to it. And I think we sometimes forget it's a simple thing like that can bring so many new players to the game. If you look at Gaelic, you talked there, Michelle, about, was it that Sam Maguire that Kerry were thinking about taking back in the next 2 decades?
But no, the belts.
Okay. But if you look at what their grassroots structure is so good. Every park, every field, if you want to call it, all around the country, there's a Gaelic, posts, and there's somebody who knows the rules of the game. Just teaching the basics, putting the cones on the field, if it's either Gaelic football or hurling, and it's no wonder it's in such a good, healthy state. Obviously, it's a national sport and gets a lot of coverage, and there are countries around the world that, like in Asia, it's so popular. But I think we have to make it more popular by doing what you're saying, getting more players to be coaches as well, getting more coaches, and then getting the coaches to try and recruit the players. You can't really recruit the players without the coaches. I think there's a sequence there as well. So that's really really interesting. Yeah, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, we'll move on to Jill. I think you've sort of alluded to how you got started in badminton, but what was maybe your first real adult badminton club yourself, Jill?
So I had kind of a segue into badminton, which was, for me personally, I think was a good segue. So within the area, there was putting a lot of money into back to sport, and in particular, they had a back to badminton session on every Saturday, which I started to go to when I initially got into coaching, and it was everybody who was looking to get back into badminton. So you had every level from most people could play. And then you would play a game, and then when you got to 21, you would all switch players, and you would go up a court or down a court, depending. So your levels got much better, and that helped me to give you a bit of confidence. It's all right coaching. I think I'm a much better coach than I am a player. But it's also good to be able to increase the technique. So from the back to badminton session, they started a league, and I started in that league, and then from there I was asked to join a couple of other leagues within the area that I live in. You don't always get too many women playing badminton. So if you were a new woman and you were coming in, you were playing badminton, your level could accelerate quite quickly, because you were started to play with some really good players straight away. Predominantly mixed, so most of the leagues I played in were mixed, and then you had a few ladies doubles as well. So my first club would have been the junior club, and then back to badminton, and then I played in a few leagues in Bolton, in Southport, all around Greater Manchester area really. And there was a few coaches that I worked with along the way from different clubs. I either played it or I coached it.
Yeah, and who were sort of your maybe the first coaches you came across that sort of mentored you, if you like, or got you inspired into the game? Or what? Michelle, no real structure, just more the club members?
So I guess for me, the back to badminton session, there was the guy who ran the back to badminton session was quite good. So you could get a couple of tips off him. But when I moved my son from his first club, which was a bit of a developmental club, into a higher club, there was a coach there, Debbie Rigby. I think she played quite a lot. Her sister Sarah Sankey played in the Commonwealth Games. I think she won the gold in the Commonwealth Games. So they had their own club together. She had one in the north of England, and Sarah had one in the south of England. So she was probably quite inspirational as a coach, and as a player, she is a fantastic mixed doubles player. So I learned quite a lot from her, and I actually joined her sessions as a player as opposed to a coach. So I could improve my technique from there. So from Debbie Rigby, and then when Patrick went on to Performance Centre, that's my son, then it would have been Alan Clarkson from there. So there's been a few different people along the way where I've learned different things from different coaches and different players.
Yeah, and Mark, you remember Sarah Sankey. We met her in England a couple of years ago. Sophie was playing over there, my daughter, and again some of the English players, and she has her own camp, as you said, and very knowledgeable in the game. I think Sophia teamed up with, if I get it right, Lisa Curtin for one of the ladies' doubles. So we were both behind the court, and she had knowledge. She had such. The tips she would give over the changeover was so good. I think I remember her saying something like, it was one set all or something like this, and she just said to the girls, right, it's very simple. Do you want to win or not? She just said, and the girls said, we want to win. Okay, well, just rally, and you'll win. You're fitter, you're better. That's all you need to do. And what did they do? They rallied, and they won. It was one message. Yeah. They did it. And that was the game. It was so good because coaches can overcomplicate things at the changeover. Oh, you need to do this with this. You need to do that with that. These are young kids. They don't want a simple message. And even, senior, seasoned players, again, keeping it simple. So you were in brilliant company with Sarah Sankey, Jill. That was fantastic. And
I was going to say, hands up, I wasn't necessarily coached by Sarah Sankey because she was in the, she was more the south. It was her sister, who still fantastic player. Debbie Rigby was a very good player, a very good coach, and the coaches she had that worked with her were very good coaches as well, to be honest.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh God, I was getting Mark. I think it's you.
Yes, it is. Yeah, question number 3. I'll ask this question to Michelle. I'm passionate about badminton coaching myself, and I think badminton coaches can have such a big influence on people. Michelle, how did you get into badminton coaching, and how long have you been a badminton coach?
So back like that, when I was going down playing my badminton myself, a friend of mine, Patrick Carton, he's actually recently passed away. He was a big influence to me as into come and help with him, and he used to coach with the kids in the family resource centre locally here in Ballyheigue, and he just asked me basically would I come down just to help out, just mind the kids, and I at that stage then introduced my daughter to badminton, and I would just be below and I was just kind of helping her, showing her what to do after what I was learning. And then the next little girl would come over, or boy would come over, and they'd be saying, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? So I would just kind of start to teaching a few kids, and I found I liked it. I loved helping the kids and helping them to improve. So I decided to go away and do my level 1. And I then applied for my level 1, and I went to Dublin, and I obviously passed the level 1 course, and I came back in and I started coaching.
Was that with Tony Robinson?
Yes, Tony was a gentleman. He's the nicest ever. So he's and he just saw there was something in me with the way I coached. I had some of the women at my level 1 when I was coaching that had been doing forehand shots, couldn't do backhand, couldn't understand it. I remember I grabbed a few packets of sweets off of Tony. He had sweets, and I took the sweets off of him, and I put them down on the other side of the court, and I said to the women, okay, here, I'm putting them in here now, and I want you to hit them, and if you hit them, you get them. So I showed them how to do the backhand serve, and they were like, okay, so we're going to do it, and they kept at it, and they had great fun. They really enjoyed it, and like I think that was a big thing on the day as well.
Yeah.
But they found after 30 years of playing badminton, doing forehand serves, could never serve backhand. They realised after a few sessions with me doing that, they were able to serve now backhand.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So I just found I just fell into the game. I started loving it, and then when I came back down, I started again with the family resource. I had my coaching level at this stage, and we would have had maybe about 8 to 10 kids. And next thing I was doing my coaching, and before I kind of realised we were having numbers starting so much that we had to do on a second night because we were having 30 kids in a coaching session.
Wow.
And then so we had to split the age levels. I started taking younger kids, and we got a second night. So we had 20 kids, nearly up to 20 kids on the first night, and nearly up to 30 on the second night.
Wow.
So the number had just, they were just having fun. And again, like I said, he was a big loss to us this year, like in Ballyhike for both GA and badminton.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. You can imagine someone who's so influential just all of a sudden to not even have someone like to replace that person immediately. It is a big void. There's been a few other people that have sadly passed away in badminton. Dick O'Rafferty was another one who a lot of people would know from perhaps his presence at a lot of tournaments over the years. He was one, and Frank Peart, he passed away, but good ages too. And who else? Someone said to me, Joe Buckley. He was another advocate player. But I was going to just ask you, Michelle, just kind of slightly out of the blue. You get your quote coaching qualification. You're doing so much locally, which is fantastic. Do you get support at all from anyone? You get any support from any of the federations, any of the provinces? How does that work? Because you're talking about lots of players getting involved, so there's only so much you can do yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just curious to ask you that question, and that's because I don't, I'm not down in that part of Ireland, except for beautiful holidays, of course.
Yeah, well, this year now, Badminton Ireland did run a forum, and again, it was just kind of wanting to find out as people will say like down south more so as well about like what could be done more to help down here, even on the coaching side, player side. I did make the suggestion to them that no coaching conferences, as you know, John, I've met you at a few of the conferences over the years now, and I do really enjoy the conferences, and I did make suggestions to them that maybe if they had more coaching conference, maybe move it around, maybe bring one down to Munster, carry one Leinster, one Ulster, have maybe 4 of them within a year. People don't have to travel as far, stay away overnight.
And also it promotes more people in those locations to attend, because they might want to attend, but it's just that it's a little bit too far to go. And I know Badminton Ireland in Dublin, it is a great coaching conference. I know Andy Stewart comes over and does a brilliant job telling us all the latest and greatest of what's going on, and usually there's maybe another guest there, and then you get all the latest information, and then you get to kind of play and go for your different colour t-shirts if you wish to do that. But it is a good point. If anybody is listening to this podcast from Badminton Ireland, and I'm sure there will be many, it's something I'm sure they can take as a really good suggestion, even if it was to do 1 or 2 of them a year and rotate, so every 2 years you get all the provinces covered, or something on those lines, when we're all out of the final COVID, hopefully.
Out of COVID. Yeah, because I just find, even if a few more workshops for coaches.
Yes.
Just because even I mind going to the conference, like I've spoken with you, we would speak about different things that you would do in coaching, coming up with different ideas, maybe different drills that you could try. Maybe if you're struggling with a player that you have, we might discuss it, and you might give me ideas on what I could try and on how to advise them maybe on a shot.
Yeah.
I do find it helps talking with other coaches.
Yeah,
It certainly does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
no,
great networking is brilliant.
it is. And, we've all been through, just mentioning that word COVID, technology is there, and it could also be a part of keeping that communication process going a little bit more over the next year, but obviously nothing replacing a real forum. I do agree, meeting face to face, there is nothing like that. Great idea there. Mark, is it number 3?
Yeah, and they could do something through Zoom for coaches, maybe where coaches could do Zoom calls, break them into breakout meetings, that they could breakout meetings just where they could discuss ideas, things like that. I know we done, I think one with Connor Fadden. I think we've done 1 or 2 with Connor, alright, for the coaches ones just this year, and I actually enjoyed them, and they were through Zoom.
Yes.
And you got to see other coaches that you would see up in the conferences, and it was nice to see the familiar faces again.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I'd even take it one step further. I don't know what you think, Mark. Sometimes we have put some short videos on badminton tips on our YouTube channel, just to help give ideas to some of the players. But I think you could end up, we could do something like a live 1-hour coaching session, but set up in a court setting. So in fact, whoever is going to be managing that particular Zoom recording can demonstrate, have 1 or 2 players on court to demonstrate some of the shots the players need to practice, or some of the situations. So you kind of get really dialed in to the practical side, and why not? So you can, we all learn visually as much as we learn by instruction. So that's you might be onto something really good there. I think the world has changed forever because of COVID. We all embrace the technology. We all know how to use Zoom. It's not that difficult, and I think it's really important. Would be the only bone of contention I have sometimes with webinars. You can't interact like this. There's nothing like this interaction we're having. We're here on, obviously, the Badminton Talk podcast, and we're all looking at each other's faces. Of course, you won't see the faces unless under GDPR a photograph is allowed. So we have to ask Michelle and Jill later about that. But if not, don't worry. But we can see each other here, and we can interrupt each other, and we can ask questions. And it's not just sending a text on a chat. I understand why webinars would happen at times. They are very important, but nothing like the interaction. Nothing like it. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think there's a huge potential. I don't think Zoom really, I've only started using Zoom in the last 18 months, and really we probably could explore it a lot more. Yeah. I must admit, I'm a bit old school. I do love face-to-face. I'm very much, I love meeting people, and I love chatting to students. I love chatting to any coaches, so I'm always open to
but I don't. Yeah, I'm not saying that wouldn't continue. I'm just saying we don't have time sometimes. We're time poor in a way. So it's just a great way of keeping in touch till you get those face-to-face encounters. There's so many active clubs all around the country. Like here we are today talking to Jill, Redmond and Michelle Corr on the Badminton Talk podcast, and they're doing so much to promote badminton in Kerry. It's kind of nice to feel that badminton is a community. And occasionally we all can kind of get together, but when we can't, we use that technology to I suppose another way, it's not just a once a year meeting and that's it. There's too little in that. So and I think that's probably something that needs to be. I think we interviewed, was it David McHugh and Richard Vaughan earlier on. David McHugh is an ex-sailor, and Richard Vaughan, who was the past CEO for Badminton Ireland, and they came up with this word, which is pathway. You need to have a pathway for everything, a structure. There has to be a pathway. Yeah. So what's the pathway for the communities in the south of Ireland, in the west of Ireland, in the north of Ireland? What's the pathway so we can have much more engagement? So we need to kind of put our thinking hats on there. That's
that's very good, John. But maybe we should move on. We're listening a lot to you. We're more interested in our guests, and I need to ask Jill the same question I asked to Michelle. Jill, how did you get into badminton coaching, and how long have you been coaching? Jill?
So I got into coaching when my son first started playing, so I think I alluded to that earlier. So as he started to play badminton, I was asked if I wanted to join as a coach. So that was probably, I was maybe 37, so about 2 years ago. No, I'm joking. 37, so I've been coaching 13, 14 years, something like that. So I initially started in the club where Patrick was, that's my son. I did my level 1. I enjoyed the coaching. It was nice working with the coaches there, and then they asked me if I'd do the level 2, because then when they were going on holiday, I'd be able to run the sessions for them. So I went on to do my level 2, and I was still working with the coaches, and Patrick was getting to a point where they couldn't develop him any further, so we pushed him onto another club, the developmental club, and at that time I was kind of thinking, there's a bit of a hole here in that there's a hole here for certain players, and I'd like to continue with my coaching. I didn't want to do it at the club where I started. I don't think I was a good enough coach to go on to some of the development clubs that Patrick was going to, so I approached the local council to see whether there would be any funding available to set up my own club to continue with my coaching. And I did a pitch to them, and they put my pitch forward to one of the local football clubs, Wigan Athletic, and they liked my idea, and they offered me a 3-year contract to set up my own club and to develop it and to develop the players.
Brilliant.
And that's how I continued with my coaching through that period of time, and then I just kept on coaching, running the club until we moved here.
Oh, that's brilliant. You sort of very proactive. You identified an area that you felt needed, some players needed attention in, and it was brilliant. What a progressive council, Wigan, to get people involved in sport and employ you. How many hours a week did you work?
6. So they didn't employ me, they just gave me funding, so I never got paid for it. It was just as a volunteer. So I think it was initially I did a 2-hour session a week, and then I applied for some additional funding with Badminton England, and they were doing a smash up course, I think it was called, an activator, so you could get some extra equipment. So I did an extra session, so it's probably about 3 hours a week maybe I was probably coaching under the club that I ran.
And this was with kids?
Yeah, so most of the funding was available, so a lot of kids in the UK or in the area I was in kind of dropped out of sport from about 14 onwards, so they were looking to, most of the funding came from getting kids from 14 to 18 back into sport, but I also got funding for anybody under that. So I was connected to a local high school, so anybody from high school would have been there would have been 11 or 12 up to 17, 18, and we kind of tried to put a structure in place. And there was a structure there. There was a lot of kids coming in and playing, so we were probably having maybe 30 kids at a time, maybe 35. And I think what helps it for me is my husband is a qualified teacher, so he helped me to set up a structured plan and kind of look at body language. These people are getting bored, you need to move on, this, you need to change this. Kind of look at it from a different coaching perspective, so coach, but also look at it from a teaching perspective as well, and make sure if people don't want to be coached, then do hidden coaching, so that you're being coached without realising they're being coached. So that kind of worked for me and helped me to get my confidence up to run the club just completely on my own. And I think because it was quite successful, then what Wigan Athletic started to do is they would put new coaches that they had got through their academy. They brought them in so I could coach them to coach badminton. So we always had a progression. So if I wasn't there, somebody else could run the club for me, or they could take over the club when I moved on. So I think I probably trained up about 3 or 4 people up over that period of time, which was good for me because that boosted my confidence. And during that time, I was also being coached by other coaches to improve my badminton.
Actually, you said something there that I haven't heard in a long time, and maybe putting you on the spot here a little bit. You said something hidden coaching where people don't realise they're getting coached. How do you go about that? What? Maybe you could give me an example of how you do that.
So it's kind of like you watch what somebody does and you would go, that was really good, but next time if you just kind of hit it to the right corner, that might work better. Or that shot what you just did then, that was really good, you won the point, but if you've done X, Y and Z and you think about how you're going to do it next time, then that would be good. Or on the serve, if you lift your serve further back, you'll win the point every time because your man who you're playing against can't go that far back and he's not going to be able to clear it. So it's kind of little things like that, little niggly things where you can go up to somebody when they're playing a game and then they'll win the next 4 points, and then they'll start coming to you to ask you more questions and how can I beat this person and how can I beat that person. So that's kind of what I mean by hidden coaching. So you're not doing a structured session, you're just helping them with the gameplay.
That's brilliant. I like that. I think that's a very good way, because people continue. I suppose everybody's got different learning styles, and that would help people who just love to play, and you just come in with one little tip every 10 minutes, so they're still playing, and then they can practice that tip. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It's kind of like self-learning. In a way, trying something out, experimenting.
Yeah,
trying things out. And
one tip that the coach gives.
Yeah, I mean, the young generation today, very tech savvy. They love trying things out. They sometimes won't read all the instructions. They'll just work it out. That's how they learn. And I think taking that onto a court, they like to try things out. Which is exactly what Mark and myself do all the time. We like to, Mark, try things out. There we have to take our leave on part 1 of this interview with Jill and Michelle. My goodness, Mark, when they talk about funding and trying to get structure, isn't that really what we're all trying to do in badminton today with the clubs around? Funding and structure, you have to hand it to them. They are great ambassadors to, trying to get the standard up to an academy standard down in Kerry.
Absolutely, John. The more structure and more systems that you can bring around it, it's also brilliant. I think it's with structures and systems you can train up new young coaches. You can have pathways for young coaches to come through, to be mentored, so that these structures and systems will just keep repeating year after year, John. I couldn't agree more. I love that idea of structures and systems.
Yeah, no, Mark, and as we just heard there a few minutes ago, it's like you're trying to train the trainer. Isn't that how structures evolve? You have one coach, they coach a bunch of kids. More kids come in, you try to then get someone senior to start helping you out, and it starts mushrooming, particularly if you're limited on resources. And money is tight when it comes to lots of sports. Everybody's looking for that bit of extra funding. So job well done by Jill and Michelle, would you say, Mark, so far?
Absolutely, John. Is it? Yeah, absolutely. I know, you made a good comment there. I thought it was brilliant. That's exactly if senior coaches could maybe take 3, 4, 5 younger coaches under their wing, maybe mentor, and they will then go on and do that themselves, hopefully in a few years. So yeah, you can just keep expanding the game of badminton.
Absolutely, and we will hear more from Jill and Michelle and their vision for the game of badminton, and more from what is going on down in Kerry. Mark, it is almost time for us to take our leave. Today, as we speak here, it is the 28th of July. We've only got really 20 seconds to say this. Brilliant performance by Nat.
Oh, wasn't it? I watched every minute of it. It was just fantastic. Nat has improved so much. Actually, probably the year delay in the Olympics has played to Nat. It's given him an extra year to get physically stronger, and you could see that on the court.
Well, we have to say, brilliant performance. He did Ireland proud. He did badminton proud. I think we'll get more people into the game, interested in badminton. We think we have to watch out for that. Maybe the next Olympics, Mark. What do you think?
Yeah, Paris 2024. Yeah, I think it's the second youngest badminton competitor at this Olympics. So yeah, it's very promising.
Okay, Mark, well, that's it. We're just about out of time. You have a great weekend. We'll watch more of the Badminton Olympics on the television, and we'll hear from Jill and Michelle in part 2 next week. See you, Mark. Take care.
See you, John. Bye-bye.